Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, and welcome to another episode of Fanalysis, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I'm Retty4, this is GreyJedi91.
Hey guys.
This is Evan Nova95.
Hello.
And this is Antoine Bandelay.
I solemnly swear I am up to no good. Oh, I messed it up, but I did.
Okay.
Set the stage.
Really is
Matt.
up to no good.
Yeah.
Right. So to set the stage this time around, this is Book 1, Chapter 3, The Letters from No One. And it's sort of, I guess, Harry's invitation into the magical world. Not that he knows it. He doesn't quite get to see what's on this letter. But it, awakens that question in our minds, who is trying to get to Harry this badly that they're willing to go to these extents? But yeah, they just keep on sending letters in increasingly strange fashion. That's the story here.
And Harry has been inside his cupboard so long that it's summer break, when he's actually allowed to leave, which is really wow, that's terrible. I assume
bad.
They let him out to pee and eat, but it seems like, during the day, it's like solitary confinement, which usually makes people kind of crazy. So it's awesome that Harry kind of kept his sanity during that time before he could get out. But yes, he's saying now that, since school is over, he has to escape Dudley's gang, not just within the halls of the school, but just, out and about. And that's their favorite pastime is just punching him, because that's what you do with Harry.
As you do, yeah.
He is but a punching bag. Yeah, it raises an interesting question because he's got that ray of hope in mind that he's going to be going to the secondary school separate from Dudley for the first time. So
right.
He's got that little ray of hope there. It's an interesting what if, and if that letter had never came, or had never come rather, what his life would look like moving forward, because obviously he would be able to make friends because Dudley wouldn't be scaring them off. So he wouldn't have that same level of isolation that he's had in his home life. He'd have that kind of that escape into school the same way he does with Hogwarts. It just wouldn't be as permanent and all consuming. Probably a bit safer as well.
Would it be incredible if the tragedy of it was that he wasn't magical at all and Voldemort totally chose the wrong kid?
Yep, that would be funny.
Or it'd be even crazier if maybe Voldemort was the one that gave him magic. I mean, I know that's totally not the case at all, but if that was the case, that he imparted magic onto the kid.
Yeah, and
That'd be pretty crazy.
if it took away the whole choice being the definition of what happened, and it was
Right,
just a case of
exactly.
he did get it wrong rather than he couldn't have got it wrong. That would be interesting. But yeah, so he has that ray of hope carrying him forward, but that's about all he's got going for him because, as usual, his life is miserable.
Yeah, who looks forward to going to school? Fuck that. That's how shitty his life is at home, though.
Hermione
Yeah,
Granger
Hermione.
Shows you how low the bar
Yeah,
is.
Hermione Granger. Man, if I was going to Hogwarts, I'd be the same, especially if I was in her situation
If
where I was a
going to
muggle.
Hogwarts, yeah.
Oh, yeah. But if I was a muggle and I was like, oh
I'd
my
go
God,
to
I get to
Hogwarts
go to
right
magical
now.
school?
I would
Yeah,
still
I
go to
would right now.
Hogwarts.
Yeah,
I'd go there for
I would
5
take the
years,
remedial
that's what I'm saying.
classes.
I'd go straight back now to year one with all the kids there as well. I'm like, hey guys, you're right. I'm here to learn. But yeah,
Some 25-year-old just sitting in the back.
but yeah, we're introduced to the concept of smeltings, which kind of scales up the douchebaggery of Dudley to a whole
Which
new
is
level.
a boarding school for boys, correct?
It's not a boarding school. It's just a secondary
Not a
school,
boarding
I
school,
think.
okay.
I think
Secondary
anyway.
school,
But yeah, and it's not a real place. For the
It's
record.
a prissy one, though, right?
Yeah.
He's got a walking stick.
private school.
That's not normal over there, is it?
No,
Right?
no.
Well,
It's
you guys-
not normal.
Okay.
It's not normal. It's the upper class
Thank goodness.
snobbery private school style, which are not all horrible, but this is definitely an example of them. I mean, they give them sticks to hit each other with to
Man.
motivate one another.
Walking sticks are a bit stupid for adults, but I mean, because the idea is that you don't actually need it. It's like a status thing. For
Right.
that to be in the hands of an 11-year-old, please.
Yeah, and he makes excellent use of it in the way only Dudley can. I like the fact that Vernon Dursley, Mr. Dursley, whatever, kind of
Approves
of the
him
stick and kind of
thrashing
actively
Harry.
says, yeah, it's like, with the whole interplay of go get the post and make Harry do it and go get the posts, make Dudley do it, like poke him with a stick, give him a jab. I like that he manages to just tone it up to that level, even with actual physical abuse in his household.
And even before that, when we were mentioning before in previous chapters about Harry's wit, we finally got the moment that we were talking about with the toilet, because Dudley brings up that, since he's going to Stonewall, which is another secondary school, he's like, oh, I hear on the first day they like stick people's head in the toilets. And he's like, you want to go training upstairs? And then Harry's like, no. What did he say? What's the exact line? Oh, the poor toilet's never had anything as horrible as your head down it. It might be sick. And then it takes like Dudley
Just
5
runs.
minutes to figure out what he meant by that.
Yeah.
And Harry's already gone like down the hall somewhere.
Just sprints off immediately. Because we did mention it before, but it is noted that he's quite fast as well. He doesn't look it, but he's fast.
Yes.
Which I like is a little bit of a mini nod to his athleticism and how that can carry over to Quidditch. As
Which will help
Seeker.
with Seeker. Yeah.
And this is kind of like a little demonstration of that, of how he's just like he's quick-witted and quick on his feet as he just sprints away.
Right.
But like you said in the previous chapter, Antoine, that this is kind of an example of his wit coming to the forefront, because he is, he's still in that kind of timid stage of due to his circumstances, but he does have, as we see later in this chapter, a bit of a raw side to him.
Yeah, which comes up quite a bit with Snape and other teachers that he doesn't.
Yes,
He's not very fond of.
He's not a fan of authority for authority's sake.
No, he's not. He really isn't.
As he shouldn't be.
I was
and then
gonna say,
also
Gryffindors aren't in general, huh?
Yeah.
It's like a Gryffindor thing.
Even Hermione isn't, and she's the example of someone who you would think usually is, but no, she just gives her respect to the whole teacher side more. When they don't need it, they don't get it.
I think I see those examples. Because I'm trying to think of examples like that for Hermione, but we'll get there. We will get there. But yeah, we also see Petunia dyeing his clothes because they really don't want him to. Or they don't want to spend any extra money on Harry, so they're like, "Oh, we'll just dye Dudley's old clothes," which already don't fit Harry because he's already wearing Dudley's hand-me-down clothes, which is why things wear so loosely on him. But also, I kind of felt like this maybe had some parallels to the Weasleys and their hand-me-downs, but that it's different because Harry does have money and does have like this whole backing, but then with the Weasleys they actually do. So I wonder if. I mean, we already know Harry's like a pretty good guy. He's compassion and all that stuff. So that when he does interact with Ron and the Weasleys going forward, he's very giving in that way because he's known he's never had anything. And this is like one of those examples of him being treated like dirt, but then him treating people not like dirt at all.
I mean, he specifically notes that he would give all the gold and Gringotts that he has to the Weasleys if he thought they'd accept it. I mean, he's that level of appreciation for what he gets from their family and the love he gets. From them as a surrogate.
I will say though, not to open up a huge can of worms, I've never quite understood how much of a burden it is to be poor as a wizard when you can conjure pretty much everything you need.
Again, it's one of those things with the world-building side. You can't question it, or it all just falls on its face.
Yeah.
And my friends talk about that all the time. It's like, there's no such thing as world hunger or anything like that when there's magic involved.
Well, the food is different. Food is the one thing. It's the one thing that I can get them needing money for to purchase. But everything else, they can just literally conjure out of thin air.
They literally have like a farm. Like they
can make a mansion.
They raise chickens and shit. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So anyway, though, I didn't mean to get us mired in that.
It's just the specialist magic that takes money, I think.
But Harry gets his first letter, and it's addressed specifically to him, not just to Privet Drive, but to the cupboard under the stairs. Like he's like, what? What is this? So then he gets it, and then Dudley's like, hey, he's got a letter.
Chaos ensues. It's another one of those iconic moments in the story, isn't it? Like, the cupboard under the stairs, the letter that you get from Hogwarts itself. It's one of those, every kid wants one. That's kind of one of the big things that stands out from the series in just general knowledge of the franchise.
I also like
the first time. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Just the fact that he kind of again, it's only because these people are so crazy, but he really could have avoided all this trouble if he had just like, this is mine, I'm hiding it. But he just waltzes into the kitchen. I've got my letter. It's like, what? You can't have that, But if he had just saved it,
He even laments that fact as he gets out of the room. If only he had opened the hallway.
But I like that this is one of the first times we get the I forget what the name of it is, but like the poem stanza type of thing that we get with a lot of Harry Potter with letters and such like that.
They format it.
They format it, right? And it's funny because when I initially read it, I remember it actually being like handwritten, and that it was like like drawn, but it never was like that. It was just typeface that was like slightly different. And then my memory as a child was that, oh yeah, like I actually got to see like their letters drawn out, and it was cool seeing their handwriting. But I don't know how my memory did that, but it was way more epic than what I saw here. And I was like, oh wait, never mind. It's just italicized text.
It might have
like,
been confusing it with future letters. I'm not counting
Are
those
future letters
out.
actually like drawn? Is that what I'm thinking?
I know
well,
that I remember that the Owl's examination was put in. It was formatted, but it wasn't a different
They're more,
text for me.
They're more elaborate. Like I remember, this is way ahead, but Hagrid sends a letter about Buckbeak and he's crying, and like it says like it's blotched and it's literally blotched.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not crazy. Okay.
So some of them are more animated or detailed, than others.
Right.
Yeah.
Not the case
I'm
here
not
though.
crazy.
We only get we don't even get different font type. We just get italicized.
Yeah, but
right.
it's chapter art though. Like you guys don't have chapter art.
Yeah,
like
it's
we
just one of those
established.
things again. And again, there'll probably be different book editions, but I know that all of the standard editions don't have that. But yeah,
Again,
one of
we
the
Americans
examples,
like our visuals.
yeah, one of the examples that I just showed up there, Matt, that of one of the more detailed and more formatted stuff is the Hogwarts school list. What they need to take to school. That was quite more involved in the layout. But I like that they do that because it's another way of easing you into that kind of gateway of perception. They can show you what the character's seeing, and you just read it as it's seen. You're just being shown what they're using in the scene. It just helps you not have to plow through a ton of description. It's just easier that way.
Especially for my poor child brain, help me picture this.
Yeah.
Right. And then we go off to, now that he's got his first letter and then they're aware that, these wizard people are trying to contact him, and then they know that he lives underneath the cover, they're like, okay, we should probably, if they're like spying on us or watching us, we should probably give him a proper room. And they're like, hey, we're going to give you a room so that we don't get like child services like calling us or something like that. And, whatever their reasoning is behind it, or that a wizard will come and like give them, a sickness or whatever.
How nice of them.
I also like sort of the gradual realization that Harry has, like Uncle Vernon, who seemed to be trying to be nice to Harry.
Yeah,
it takes him a while. This behavior is so odd. He's being nice? What's going on here? It takes him a while to cotton on to it.
And again, it's a perfect example actually of the written prose as well, with how who seemed to be not. That's not his thought. That's not his thoughts being written out, but it is in terms of the narrative. It's it's a small example of that, how she writes it around their thoughts.
That's sort of that's what I was mentioning in the first review. Is like it slowly starts to take on like a cadence that's in line with Harry's thought process.
Yeah.
You can still see her hand in it, but it's colored by Harry's as well.
Yeah.
She blends it too well.
It's a beautiful way of doing it, and I wish more books did. But it's very difficult to do. So,
and then we get the sequence. Does he immediately go downstairs and then Vernon's at the bottom of the stairs? No, there's another scene before that, right?
It's
a continuation because he doesn't know that the next one's coming until the second one does. I think it's the third day that he tries that.
And it's It's also like a well done mystery because it's not necessarily it's not portrayed as like isn't this wonderful and wondrous and happy. It's a little eerie, like Harry is pacing up and down, like going, someone knew, that he was in a cupboard, and now they knew he was in a different room. Like how do they know this? Like it's almost creepy, like when you don't know.
Out of context. Imagine.
Yeah.
He's getting a letter out of nowhere, and they know that much detail. I think anyone would be a little disturbed.
He's not like he's more excited, but like from the perspective of the reader, like there's that ominous tone to it,
It establishes early on as well the fact that the type of person Harry is, he is that detective. He's the one he's pacing, going, "What is this? What could this mean? How can I get around this planning and scheming?" And that's what he is for the entire series. He's being
that is what the series is. The series is a mystery at its core, really. Like, yeah, it's a middle grade young adult series, but like at its core, it's a mystery, and it is like a little Encyclopedia Brown book. Most of the time,
I feel like Chamber of Secrets feels the most like that in an overt sense. Yeah,
solving the problem of the basilisk.
We'll get to that though.
Yeah.
And then also, oh my goodness, I was gonna say something and then I totally forgot. Blank.
Well, this is when he went down and like stepped on Vernon's face. Is that where we are?
Yeah,
that's where we are.
It's a horrible feeling, stepping on something that's alive and then reacting to it, and the shiver down your spine. And it's got to be even worse when it's the abuser that screams at your face for half an hour afterwards.
And this is Is this before or after he?
Oh,
like,
yes. Okay, I got my thought back. Yeah. So
Okay.
the trackers that they have on underage wizards. Do we know who actually dictates that? And like,
Those are one of the.
The
No,
trace is ministry based, but that's all we know really.
Callum, you've mentioned in this very episode not to question the world building too much because it falls down, and I feel
one
like
of those things.
that's an inconsistent thing, because they. Here's my big one. They were there's something to do with Voldemort that didn't make sense to me. It might have been when he killed the Riddle. No. I'll find at some point in the books we'll come to it. Like I have an issue where
your
you're
mind
like,
will jog. The big thing with the trace though is the fact that they don't know the specifics. They just know that magic was used in the area. They don't know the exact detail, and yet they know.
that's the thing. But sometimes they do. But sometimes they do know specifics. Like, you know what I mean?
It is one of
it's
those
very
things.
strange.
There are a few gaps in like kind of the world building setting
They
logic
knew-
that she has. That's why I say she's a bad world builder in the sense of consistency because of what the type of story she's trying to tell. She doesn't need to be a good world builder. In fact, I think it would have damaged the experience of the books if she had been, because it would. I mean, the portraits, for example, completely impossible unless you want to completely break the entire way a culture develops. But it doesn't matter. You don't question it. You just move on. And I think this is one of those, as with most of them. There's a single exception from book 7. I know you and I have talked about before, Matt, the where you have to question it, and there is a problem with it. But by and large, I can't think of anything else.
Oh, right now I don't even know what you're talking about. So that's interesting because that'll be a fresh discussion. Like I'm sure I'll remember it after you bring my attention back to it. But
yeah, he
so
stepped on Vernon's face, and then the madness ensues as more and more letters arrive.
No, he was sleeping there to intercept the letters before Harry could get to him. But is this before or after he boarded it up with a fruitcake as a hammer?
Before, because he was going to see.
Okay.
Yeah, this is before. Yeah.
And then he does try to board up the letterbox with a fruitcake as he's saying, "These people's minds work in mysterious, different ways. They don't think like us, Petunia."
Yeah. That's what I love. That just the tone of that. Like they're not like you and me. These people's minds they work in strange ways, Petunia.
He says
like nails in the mouth and hammering with the cake. She writes. Her comedy is excellent, particularly around certain characters, the twins being the prime example. But I think the reason that is the case is because of the way she writes, how it's blending that perspective and that kind of personal touch to every voice of the characters. They work together to make even the smallest scenes hilarious. Because we know Vernon at this point. Everything we need to know about Vernon is encapsulated in these early chapters. So this happening, you can perfectly visualize the scene. And that's what makes it funny. If it was just a standard character and a standard thing, this would be ridiculous.
He's also funny to me because of how blindly he just plows on into like the unknown. He has no idea what the fuck he's talking about. He has never met. It's like he thinks he knows how their minds work. I mean, he says it with such. I know this to be true, and it's like, what is wrong with you? Like, what must be like. What must it be like to go through your life that way in all aspects?
The stress alone, and the fact that he thinks this plan is going to work. He doesn't just bolt up the letterbox when they start coming through the window and through the cracks under the doors. He starts bolting up everything so they can't get out of the house. This is the level of insanity that it's brought to. But
it's progressive throughout the week, because it's like I think we start on
just gets worse and worse.
Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday comes, and then Sunday, and he's like, "Oh, great! I don't have to worry about it today. There's no post." But it's like wizards don't have the same rules as the Muggles do. So sorry, bro. And then I think that's when the storm of letters comes through the fireplace. If I'm mistaken.
This is one of those scenes that I think was kind of made iconic by the film in particular, because the way that happens is just beautifully executed. I mean, even to the point that's the meme I was talking about before, Antoine, with the no post on Sundays. Best day of the week.
It's like I will say about that scene in the movie, because my dad didn't read the books, but he liked watching the movies with me when I was a kid. He's like, really? He couldn't get one letter out of that?
I know.
When you look at that, just the sheer amount of letters. But he didn't get to open it. He still didn't get to open it. He's come on. Like there had to be some kind of recourse. Like he could have. But anyway. But that I know it is in the film and not the book, but or the description of it anyway. But the way he's kind of catching it in slow motion, looking up, that was one of the best kind of movie moments for me in the series. Just how it kind of captures the magic and the magic. It's not quite whimsy because it's plays off more naturally in the film than that, but it is just the magic of the moment and how that's come on, and the music playing. It's great moment. And it happened in the book. It wasn't described as such. And isn't it McGonagall who sends the letters every year?
Yeah, that was the other point.
Okay.
That was the other point.
I like the idea that she's like, I'm getting back to you at you guys for being so mean to Harry. Like she's like just coming up with increasingly shitty way. Like she put him in the milk bottles at one point, or the egg cartons, or
And
something
the
like that.
eggs,
Just
yeah.
completely impossible ways. Like I'm gonna like you guys are gonna have
that's
a bad
bad for her
week.
because she can do that so easily. She can change yolk to be like a letter easily.
That's the thing,
great.
though. It's transfiguration as well, but the fact that she can just duplicate these letters and spam them. But that was the point I wanted to raise. Do you think this is standard practice when they don't get a letter received, or is this literally
No, I don't think
McGonagall
so.
and or
It's for Harry.
Dumbledore
It's for
just
Harry.
completely
Definitely
trolling
for
her?
Harry.
Because it wasn't even compulsory to send anyone to Hogwarts before. It's just like they know that they're keeping him from Hogwarts, and she's like, you don't mess with this deputy headmistress. I'm sending this letter, and you're not going to stop me,
One of my favorite characters for sure.
Yeah, it's actually a privilege to go to Hogwarts. So you wouldn't actually usually have anyone or Hogwarts pursuing you in that way. But also, people are afraid of who coming back, and they're like, we need to train up this boy, in case we need him to defend us.
I know. Obviously, she was duplicating them with magic, but I just love the visual as well of her handwriting every damn little bit.
Yeah.
Next,
She
like
probably
a
had
pile.
Rita Skeeter's self-writing pen.
Yeah, but an accurate one.
Yeah, but an accurate one.
That would be great. But yeah, so the letters are.
But then
piling.
then Vernon's like, we need to get out of the house, and just like he's really trying
They get
to
out,
evade
all right.
them.
Yeah,
And even while he's driving, he's like going on down corners. He's like, I gotta shake him off.
Yeah. Like his
it's just a hilarious visual.
Of like the wizards like watching like what the fuck is he doing? Like I mean like that's clearly you. Like I mean if it's also we knew he was in a cupboard. Like you think we can't check a car?
Yeah, and the fact as well that they're not going to be watching him at this moment. They just know the address magically. But the idea that he thinks he's being tailed is. But also, sorry, before we move on, because it was just glossed over a second ago by accident. The moment that I think is worth it when he says he specifically hits Dudley. When they hold him up, they hold him up with the whole trying to get his TV and stuff. I noted that. I thought, I'd never have thought it was that blatant with the abuse. Like obviously there's the cartoonish stuff of poking with your stick, Dudley, but then he actually just hits him around the head. And not Harry, Dudley. You can see the kind of darker side of his little bit of insanity from Mr. Dursley here. I
don't typically think of him as being all that physically abusive, but yeah, I guess he has that side of him.
Yeah, he's got that darker side.
I always pictured Harry being just supremely neglected, not so much, beaten. Yeah.
Same with me, but that's why that moment stood out to me as I was rereading. I was like, oh, he did actually, hit Dudley. So it's
the thing else gets through. That's what Dudley understands. Like, and that's it. Like, I'm not justifying the action. I'm just saying that's like it. That's why he did that.
And that's why he knows Papa's being serious.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, can I ask you, Kellen? Like the place that they go, what is that?
I knew that was going to come up.
What is
I knew
place?
it. I meant to check it beforehand on the map.
It's so glad.
It's
so cool that we have a Brit. So.
Yeah.
I don't. I've never been to the place. Obviously, it may be made up. I meant to check it before we started this. But as for shacks in the middle of the ocean being the focus of this, no. We have islands and buildings, and we have entire castles on little peninsulas and such, and islands out. But it's not a we have this house out in the middle of the ocean or this hotel where
that we can
stay,
rent to you,
and it's a shack. That is not standard practice here, for the record.
Okay.
This type of situation could probably happen, but it is by no means normal.
It's funny because when I'm a kid and I'm watching that in the movie, I don't question it because I'm a kid. But now I go, where is this place? And how did they get there? Why would you go there? I know they're trying to be isolated, but really, this place?
And he revels in the fact that the storm coming. It's that could kill you. Just to escape these letters and the fear of the magical world.
Very funny. I actually could relate to Dudley on one account, and that was him saying he was going to miss his 5 television programs, because I used to think that way as a child. My days were mapped out by when All That or Power Rangers was about to come on or something like that. So if I within my day at any point in time, oh yeah, this hour is Power Rangers hour, or this hour is Fairly Odd Parents or whatever, you know what I mean? Him having the line about I missed 5 of my programs. I'm oh, you know what, I totally would have thought like that too. I'm missing my stuff right now.
I had an unusual blessing in that my dad liked cartoons, and so he would tape them too. So whatever I didn't get to see, I knew it was taped. So I knew it was taped. Yeah, I would get to go back to it.
That's pretty cool.
VHS taping was crazy awesome.
You mentioned a VCR in this chapter. I was going to say that's going to be a weird thing for future generations of kids. VCR.
What is
a VCR?
Yeah. It's a kid holding a book
VHS
to his parents.
For us, yeah.
Maybe it wasn't this chapter. Maybe it was the other one, when Dudley got it for a Christmas present. But yeah, they mentioned VCR in the book.
That wasn't the other
Yeah.
thing we mentioned as well at the start of this. During the period that Harry was locked in the cupboard, Dudley wrecked everything he had,
Most of his gifts,
including
like his-
Mrs. Fig with the bike, because he's just that. Piggish.
You could just see if they like redid the series as like an animated thing or as a more like like overtly comedic thing. I could just see her like getting rammed and like going
that entire
after she had her leg
montage.
broken.
Yeah, that entire
Yeah.
montage of like Harry kind of looking down and just sort of doing something in the cupboard, and then pans out the door, and then immediately cuts to the montage of Dudley being a
Right.
prat.
They did Harry Potter as like a series instead of like a movie because that's something you can't really have in a movie because you can't spend the time
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But like in a show, that's totally what you would do in like one of the episodes.
That's how you pad out the episode and get the length. Yeah, but yeah.
Right.
But yeah, they arrive at the shack. They they take the boat to the shack, climb up the shore, get into this 2-room building, which is crazy. And yeah, they effectively go to sleep. That's the kind of end of this book, or the end of the chapter rather. But I like the amount of detail that's kind of ploughed into the ending of this one, because not only do we get a reasonably nice description of the shack and the kind of layout, which is just again an example of how she so easily blends description into the movement of what's happening in the plot, but also it's one of the rare times where there's like a specific focus on time passing in like a actual step-by-step sequence. It's a small thing, he's just counting down the minutes till he turns 11. But I like the fact that that's it stands out from the rest of the stuff because we don't see it very often later on, but also that it's specifically done to build up the tension and the kind of holding your breath and waiting, especially for a kid who is going to be very excited by this. But by the fact that you're turning 11, you're going to remember what that's like for you, and being excited, all leading up to that one moment of boom, ending in that wonderful sentence of how the someone was outside knocking to come in.
And that's what I was getting at last time when I talked about how chapter 2 had kind of that weaker ending where it just like ended. This is like, ooh, what's happening next? It's a perfect lead into the next chapter.
Yeah, it's the perfect example for sure. There's a lot of them with Hagrid specifically that have that actually. Yeah,
That's true. Even in later books.
Yeah, the
even in
Fallen
later
Warrior.
books. Yeah.
Break stopping my
or
heart.
even and not even in like super dramatic moments, but like there's like probably at the lowest point, like for Harry in terms of book 5 when Umbridge is taking everything away. That's like when Hagrid comes back because he's not there at the beginning of the year. And like Hermione's like, Hagrid's back. Hagrid's got that quality.
It's
Like
got
when
that magic to it.
when Hagrid's coming, Hogwarts is coming. Hagrid is sort of like.
And he's the gatekeeper, so it makes that so much more poignant. I love that's a thing. And knowing J.K. Rowling, she would have thought about that because she is crazy intelligent when it comes to little nodal connections between story, characters, plot, poetry, all that. I mean, look at Sirius Black. I could do a whole video on how he's poetry in character form. But yeah, that's someone outside knocking to come in is what the chapter closes on, and leads us into the craziness of the world opening up in the next one. Any closing thoughts for this?
No, that's it.
No.
Yeah, no, that is pretty much it.
we're
Just one
good.
thing I would like to point out that I do like in the movie that wasn't in the book originally, which I didn't realize, was Harry making his birthday cake out of the dirt and then the candlesticks. I didn't realize. I was like, oh, that wasn't actually in the book. That was just a movie thing, a movie construct. But I thought it was a really sweet moment. That he's like, oh yeah, like they didn't give me a cake or whatever. Let me just make it out of dirt and blow it myself and say happy birthday to myself, which is heartbreaking.
Yeah,
It's also one of those things that is like sort of like necessity required it because in the book you can just use the prose of the book. Oh, my birthday's
It's
coming,
his
but he has
birthday,
no
but
one. He has no one to
visually,
talk to in the film.
yeah.
So that's the only way that it makes sense to convey that to the audience as well. Yeah.
It's a wonderful translation from book to the cinematic language, and expressing the kind of
That
anticipation of the
adaptation
moment
is done right.
Yeah,
I think
precisely.
Like, with moments like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Taking
that's,
something from a written to visual medium.
yeah, exactly. It's perfect example of that. And yeah, we'll jump into what happens next in the next chapter. Fanalysis. I'm ready for, and I still don't have an outro.
Graded at 91. Take care.
Evan over 95. We hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys later.
Antoine Bandelet, mischief managed.
Goodbye.